one of the strangest trucks ever built, and honestly, it looks more like a toy than a serious machine. Produced from 1948 to 1967, it featured a tiny 2.0-liter engine, a three-wheel layout, and a single front wheel that could turn almost completely around, giving it incredible maneuverability in tight spaces. It was practical for city deliveries, but visually, it's just odd. The rounded cab, stubby nose, and tricycle stance make it look unbalanced and almost cartoonish. Functional? Absolutely. But let's face it, it looks hilariously idiotic. Berliet T100. The Berliet T100 is less of a truck and more of a moving mountain, and that's exactly why it feels so absurd. Built in the late 1950s, it packed a massive 29.6-liter V12 engine producing up to 700 horsepower, a 6x6 drivetrain, and could haul around 100 tons across desert terrain. It stood nearly 5 meters tall, with enormous 2.2-meter tires, making it look ridiculously oversized. While incredibly powerful, its extreme size, boxy design, and overkill proportions make it look less like a truck and more like a giant, awkward beast on wheels. GM Futureliner. The GM Futureliner is one of those trucks that feels more like a rolling sci-fi fantasy than something built for real roads. Produced in the 1940s and 1950s, it stretched about 33 feet long, stood over 11 feet tall, and weighed around 12 tons, powered by a GMC inline-six engine with complex transmission systems. It even had huge side panels that opened into display stages. But honestly, it looks idiotic. The sky-high central driving cabin, bulky Art Deco body, and oversized proportions make it look like a giant toy spaceship rather than a practical truck. Tatra 111. The Tatra 111 is a truck that feels both legendary and strangely awkward at the same time. Built from the 1940s, it packed a massive 14.8-liter air-cooled V12 diesel engine, producing around 180 to 210 horsepower, a rugged 6x6 drivetrain, and a unique backbone tube chassis that made it incredibly capable off-road. It could haul over 10 tons and survive brutal conditions, which is impressive. But visually, it looks a bit idiotic. The tall, narrow cab, exposed fenders, and oddly spaced wheels give it an unbalanced, almost insect-like stance. It's tough, no doubt, but definitely not easy on the eyes. Thornycroft Antar. The Thornycroft Antar is a truck that feels as excessive as it looks. Built in the 1950s as a heavy-duty military tractor, it packed a massive 18.0-liter V8 engine producing around 260 to 300 horsepower, a 6x4 drivetrain, and the ability to haul tanks weighing over 50 tons. It was incredibly powerful, but visually it's just awkward. The long, bulky nose, high cab, and stretched body make it look unbalanced and oddly shaped. It almost feels like parts from different trucks were stitched together, giving it that strangely idiotic appearance despite its serious capabilities. Fagioli Super Freighter. The Fagioli Super Freighter is one of those trucks that makes you stop and wonder what went wrong. Or right. Built around 1950, it used an unusual design where the engine sat under the floor, and the tiny driver's cab was pushed all the way to the front, almost glued onto what looked like a trailer body. It could carry heavy loads and even used underfloor diesel engines producing up to around 250 horsepower. But visually, it looks idiotic, like someone forgot to add a proper cab, leaving a weird, boxy trailer-on-wheels appearance. REO Cab Over Engine. The REO Cab Over engine truck is one of those vintage haulers that looks downright odd to modern eyes. Built in the mid-20th century, with the driver's cabin sitting directly over the engine and front axle, it was designed to maximize cargo space while keeping overall length short for delivery routes and tight roads, a clever idea for its era. But let's be honest, that flat, boxy front, weirdly high seat position, and stubby proportions make it look almost like a giant toy truck. Functional? Sure. But its awkward stance and odd aesthetics give it an idiotic truck vibe compared to sleeker conventional rigs. International Harvester Metro Van. The International Harvester Metro Van is one of those vintage trucks that feels odd and oddly charming all at once. Produced from 1938 to 1975 as a forward-controlled delivery van and walk-in cab truck, it used inline-six engines of about 4.4 liters, producing roughly 113 horsepower, rear-wheel drive, and a boxy steel body designed for multi-stop work like milk and bakery deliveries. But let's be honest, it looks kind of idiotic. The tall, flat front stance and stubby proportions make it resemble a giant. Diamond T 980. The Diamond T 98 is one of those heavy-duty wartime trucks that's as weird to look at as it was tough in service. Built from 1941 as a 12-ton 6x4 tank transporter tractor with a huge Hercules inline-six diesel or massive Hall-Scott gasoline engine, it could haul up to 120,000 pounds on trailers thanks to low gearing and a 12x3 gearbox. But let's be honest, people often call it downright idiotic to stare at. That long coffin-like hood, boxy wartime cab, and odd proportions give it a stretched, almost mismatched appearance. Its functional history is impressive, but visually it looks like a truck that fell out of another era. Kenworth Bullnose. The Kenworth Bullnose cab overtruck is a classic that turns heads for all the wrong reasons. Built in the late 1940s through the 1950s, it featured early diesel engines like Cummins pushing around 260 to 420 horsepower and fuller gearboxes in a cab-over layout that was rugged for heavy hauling work. But let's be honest, it looks ridiculous. That rounded bullnose front is oddly shaped and sits almost like a puckered snout on wheels, giving it an awkward, bulbous stance that feels unbalanced compared to conventional rigs. It's functional and historic, but visually, it's a goofy relic from another era. Leyland Hippo. The Leyland Hippo is a massive old-school 6x4 heavy cargo truck built from 1929 and used in both civilian and military roles, with an inline six-cylinder Leyland diesel engine of around 100 horsepower and up to about 10 to 12-ton payload capacity. But let's be honest, it looks hilariously awkward. Its giant, boxy body and long wheelbase give it a squat, ungainly stance, like a beast trying too hard to look tough. With a flat, hulking cab and huge rear bed, it almost resembles a rolling brick on wheels, functional in its day, but visually idiotic by modern standards. International Transstar 2 Eagle. The International Transstar 2 Eagle is a classic cab-over truck that definitely turns heads, and not always for good reasons. Built in the 1970s to 80s as a heavy-duty cab-over semi with engines like Cummins diesels and Eaton Fuller gearboxes, it was solid on power and hauling duty for highway work. But let's be honest, it often looks kinda idiotic to modern eyes. That boxy, flat front cab perched right above the engine. An axle gives it a weird, squat stance that feels unbalanced next to sleeker conventional rigs. Its proportions and sharp angles make it look almost like a giant toy block on wheels. Functional, sure, but visually awkward in traffic. Mercedes-Benz EXT92. Concept. The Mercedes-Benz EXT92 concept is one of those futuristic truck ideas that makes you scratch your head in disbelief. Unveiled at the 1992 Frankfurt International Motor Show, this Euro experimental truck was built as a long-haul tractor/semi-trailer rig with a super streamlined body, low gap between cab and trailer, video cameras instead of mirrors, radar systems, and a center-position driver's seat, all aimed at cutting drag and innovating comfort and safety. But honestly, it looks idiotic. That egg-shaped, almost alien aerodynamic shell and unconventional proportions give it a goofy spaceship meets semi vibe that never really sat well next to ordinary trucks. It's fascinating to admire, but visually, it's a head-scratcher. Walmart Wave Concept Truck. The Walmart Wave Concept Truck is one of the wildest and weirdest semi-truck ideas you'll ever see. So futuristic, it almost looks like a joke on wheels. Designed in 2014 as the Walmart Advanced Vehicle Experience, it used a range-extending turbine-electric hybrid powertrain that could run on diesel, natural gas, or biodiesel, with the driver's seat oddly placed in the center and huge LCD screens instead of gauges. Its 53-foot carbon fiber trailer is ultralight but visually strange, and the highly streamlined, almost spaceship-like shape makes it look downright idiotic next to normal rigs. Jeffrey Quad. The Jeffrey Quad is one of the oddest early trucks you'll ever see, and honestly, it kind of looks idiotic by today's standards. Built from 1913 to 1928, with a Buda 5.1-liter four-cylinder engine and four-wheel drive plus four-wheel steering, it was designed to haul about 1.5 tons over mud and rough terrain, and even served in World War I. But visually, it's like a mechanical mule with giant exposed wheels and a bare-bones frame, almost like someone sketched the truck before realizing they forgot a proper cab and body.